Okay, good evening, everyone. It is May 1st, 2025, the time being, where are we? 6:17. I call to order the regular city council meeting, City of Glenwood Springs. Ryan, please take the roll call.
Mayor Dame,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Zelensky, Councilor Townsley, Councilor Schmal, Councilor Weimer, Councilor Smith. We have a quorum.
As always, item number 2 tonight is agenda changes and conflicts. Anybody on council have a conflict of interest? Or if we do have a small agenda change, and you want to do it? Councilor Zelinski.
I would like to move the item number 7 from the regular agenda, Historic Preservation Commission Awards, to the next regularly scheduled city council meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion to move item 7.
Second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Mr. Mayor, could you turn your mic on?
I probably could, but then everybody hears me. Got it. I will do that. Thank you. All right, now we have disclosure of any council conflict of interest. I guess I took that in with the other conflicts. Any conflict of interest with tonight's agenda? On our end, see none. We'll go into council announcements, item number 4 on the agenda. You're just green. Do you have anything?
No.
Okay. Anybody? No announcements?
I don't know.
Yep,
Looking for the button push.
bottom right.
Little
There you go. Steve Smith, please.
All right. Thank you. The Transportation Commission is having its regular meeting coming up next week. And last I knew was going to follow it with a tour of the Hanging Lake Tunnel. So kind of a curiosity field trip opportunity. I suppose others would be welcome, but in any case, the commission is going to go out with some staff and bring back some reports.
Good, excellent, thank you. Anybody else? No, we'll see none. Moving to citizens appearing before council for items that are not on the agenda. And we had a sheet floating around. I don't know if anybody had a chance, but if not, no worries. I'll call on you when it's time. So we'll start with Diane Reynolds, please. You get 3 minutes. Please speak into the microphone and watch the timer.
Thank you all for speaking into the microphone. It's very helpful. It was a false start last week. I wanted to welcome the new members to City Council and congratulations on taking the seat for our beautiful community. I'm Diane Reynolds, Blake Avenue and Glenwood Springs resident. Over 7 years ago, our neighbor Sumner Schachter and I began Imagine Glenwood, which is a neighborhood organization that was concerned about traffic impacts on our valley floor, businesses, and homes. Our Take a Minute, Slow Down in Town campaign works to encourage our largest generators of traffic to be actively involved in helping educate drivers, all drivers, as to the importance of them slowing down their speeds in town. We're all aware that they come into our city at excessive speeds, and that 25 miles per hour is usually about a 70% reduction of the speeds that they were driving before they hit our city limits. Part of that campaign is to not only educate them as to the importance of slowing down their speeds, but we want to also stress the impossibility of driving with the concept of hurry. If you don't know how many traffic lights are between Glenwood Springs and Aspen, I would encourage you to take a count. There are a lot. Entrance and exit points in Glenwood Springs, 1.5 miles, we have over 100 access points. There's barely that as you drive from Glenwood up to Aspen. So we have the lion's share of activity in our community. Traffic weighs heavily on the minds of all Valley Floor residents and pedestrians, those who are exposed to it on a daily basis. The positive steps continue with the current comprehensive safety action plan by Alta in the works, which is number 9 on your agenda tonight. We want to partner up with them. We've been active since 2019 in Glenwood. It's our own campaign. It's take a minute, slow down in town. It's a slogan adopted that has 60 seconds or 1 minute as its basis. If you drive our 1.5 mile core at 25 miles an hour versus 33, which tends to be an average comfortable speed, it is a 60-second time difference. It's take that minute and reinvest it in this community and see positive impacts everywhere. If anybody's checking the Evoli speed signs that are now posted on Grand Avenue will routinely show approximately a 33 mile per hour speed sign. And I walk that street a lot. Most at risk in this community are pedestrians and are people that live on the most trafficked streets. Changes abound. From 2019 to today, this council has all new faces. In 2019, the sitting council took up the cry and said, yes.
I
we
hate to
support
interrupt
you.
you. The 3 minutes are over.
We ask that this council once again unanimously reconfirm support for this campaign, and however we need to go about getting that achieved, we would appreciate it.
And thank you. You almost made it. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
When could we expect an answer? A vote on this issue? We'd like to know that this council supports this effort.
Let's see if we can get some response to you from council after the citizens' comments are over.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Lori Chase.
Lori Chase, 705 Cowden Drive. I usually type up something and I don't read from it. So I'm going to skip the typing something up and just cut to the chase. So last Thursday at about 1:30 in the morning, according to the police report, we were vandalized on 6th Street, with the heaviest damage coming to the Arts Council. We're a nonprofit. We can't afford this stuff. I'm glad that the police did respond relatively quickly and they did capture the offender, thankfully. And I'm going to be presenting a bill before he's brought to court. But that being said, we have a tremendous homeless problem there. There's like little spaces where they all hang out, and ours is one of them. And what I was doing was I went online to see if there was anything humane that we could do to discourage these homeless people from gathering in certain areas. And I found this one product that's called Blue Chirper. And I forwarded it to Marco, and I don't know if he shared it, but it's a motion activated blue light, a strobe light, and then it also starts chirping like a cricket. And according to the manufacturer, the blue light's supposed to make it really hard to see your veins if you're going to shoot something up. But anyway, I would like to see if we can do something to help. We've already talked to the DDA and worked on some other measures. So maybe we can look into this and do something more just to get them out of the neighborhoods. And across the street, the alleyway that's across the street, I've heard from a few people that live over there in North Glenwood, and that alleyway is kind of very scary with people that hang out. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Lori. And anybody else here that would like to come forward, please come to the podium, state your name and whether you live in the city or not.
My name is Tracy Wilson. I live on 6th Street. Perfect segue. Lori and I did not discuss what we're going to say before this. I wrote this. I'm going to read really fast. Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to stand here on behalf of the residents, merchants, artists, patrons, and tourists whose lives are enriched and thrive on the 6th Street block between Glenwood Springs Bridge and the Hot Springs Pool. There has been an influx and increasing concerns about the health, safety, and daily well-being of us stakeholders. Before I begin, I would like to share with you my knowledge of the many challenges and laws that limit immediate action to these problems, but I do not believe our hands are tied. I believe that with our strong community, sense of small town safety, and the gratitude we have for living in this beautiful valley, there should be motivation to work towards some reasonable solutions to at least damper some of these concerns. As we approach summer and what soon will be a beautiful new space for our community and culture, we as stakeholders ask that some major risks in our safety and well-being be addressed. I personally hold these concerns at great height because it is the place in which I live, my husband works, and where I'm developing a multi-studio art and music space for community artisans and musicians to exercise their craft and passion. Lately, there has been an influx of transient homelessness mischief that regularly interrupts sleep of residents, causes damage to private property, and has compromised our safety to just simply live. We work hard so we can pay our rent to live and work here. It is not appropriate for the lives of us stakeholders of 6th Street to be controlled by some of these individuals who struggle with addiction and mental health. As these problems occur for many of these individuals, there is behavioral debris they leave behind in their path for us to clean up. There is an abundance of garbage and, on occasion, human feces we are left to deal with. There are individuals that sleep under porches, around corners, and on the private property behind the buildings on 6th Street. I call the police on the regular because someone is either having a mental health drug-induced episode, screaming profanity to people walking by, and like I stated before, destructive vandalism. Since the construction began, the owner of the private property behind 6th Street worked with the city to make available space for a detour for drivers during construction. Our ask is that there is consideration that people live here, people work here. This is, for some of us, our complete livelihood. We want tourists and merchants to feel safe so businesses can thrive on 6th Street. I want to be able to feel safe walking to and from my art studio on my private property in the dark. We all look forward to what 6th Street will become, but we need to put some systems in place to maintain the integrity of the vision on which will soon come to fruition. I'm not asking to solve the problem of homelessness or cherry pick who should be allowed or enjoy what 6th Street will have to offer. What I'm asking is that there is more awareness that we exist here and deserve to thrive like any other resident business occupied street in Glenwood. We are not in the shadows. We are here.
And there's Sonny. You did great. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your comments. Anybody else from the public here? Yeah. Please come forward. State your name and whether you live in the city or not. Let me point it out. You got 3 minutes.
Meryl Glickman, and I live in Cardiff Glen, Ward 5. More than a year ago, 4/28/2024, I presented the council with a position statement from Cardiff 2 HOA, which represents more than a third of the 154 families that live in that little development. I want to thank the council for listening and being so respectful. They've been amazing. I notice there's only one familiar face, and so I've pledged to come back and talk about some of the facts. But I've been working with Ryan, and he has been incredible. He has talked to me. He's been respectful. He's been wonderful. And I'm hearing at the workshop meeting today that my dreams are coming true. The community and the board that I represent have asked for safety concerns and they've been met. And, we've talked about a fence and it's been met. And I just wanted to say, just in case the sound study comes back as approved, it is not a 10-foot fence that we're looking at. We are allowed to have a 10-foot fence, but it goes to the community. The CDOT says that you talk to the community and get what they want. And I just wanted to educate the entire council that we're not talking about a monstrosity. We are not talking about a 10 to 14-foot fence, and we're not removing any playgrounds. So I want to be fair, with all due respect. I don't know how to get this message through that Cardiff 2 will work with the council as we've talked. with Ryan and I, that we want something that works, just like we want something for Midland. We feel the pain. And I have 51 seconds. So, most of the sound is caused by pavement noise. And so something reasonable will work. We're not trying to get what we can from the city. We're trying to work with the city to make it the best for the whole community and look wonderful. We don't want a monstrosity. We just want to live in peace. And we trust the city will do the right thing. And I'll sing a song for the rest. My 15 seconds. No, I won't. Bye.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for the enlightenment here. This is great. Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public? All right, we'll see none. I'll close the public portion, bring it back to council for comments and responses to what we heard tonight. And we'll start with Councillor Zelinski.
So I wanted to speak to those of you commenting about what's going on 6th Street. I have building on Grand Avenue in the 800 block, right behind the library. And so I've been dealing with a little of what you've been dealing with for a number of years, and I've seen the acceleration. In the short term, the DDA has a lighting program. It's a partnership grant where they will help you put lighting in sensitive areas in the back of your building. So that will help in the short term as we continue to work together. But I wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. So if you have dark spaces, it's a lot less appealing to congregate in spaces that are well lit. And so we do have a program that's with the Downtown Development Authority. I think you guys are all in district over there. So that will be one place to start as we, continue to pursue this. It's on all of our minds. So, I hope you don't feel alone. I hope you don't feel unseen, unheard, or unacknowledged. It's a real problem and it's a sticky one, but we're working on it. Yeah.
Thank you. And Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Aaron, for reminding me that there's some other programs that could help with 6th Street or other areas that have this kind of difficulty. Am I correct that this really is a crime problem? And I don't know how to properly direct questions. I'll ask the mayor if this is a crime and enforcement problem, or is there more to it than this?
I think the only way to find out is to ask the question.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Where people live or don't live is not really the issue. If they're behaving badly, that's the issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of both, but what you have to recognize is that there's limits on the criminality side as to sort of what the outcome is. We can say it's a crime issue, but it's not necessarily going to address it. And so I do think that some of these other, physical changes to the space probably have a bigger impact in a lot of ways than enforcement. You've got to recognize that these are not typically crimes that we have the ability to put people in jail for. We struggle with, getting fines paid and things like that. And it is a very difficult social issue. It's not really just a crime issue.
And I guess that it really was genuinely my question. I wasn't contending that, but
No,
is there, what are the buttons that can be pushed here and design and?
Yeah, and I think that's a kind of a longer discussion than for a back and forth right
Yeah.
now, and probably something we need to schedule a little bit of time and John and I can kind of give you the lay of the land on enforcement, the courts, the tools that we have available, but I don't think tonight, right now, probably not the right time to do it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Zelinski.
I'm sorry, I forgot also, there's the Victims Assistance Fund. So for monetary damages, it helps cover, especially like if there is a.
No, if there was an arrest.
We'll follow up.
We'll follow up.
Okay, so I was just say, sometimes it'll cover, like if there's property damage that goes through your insurance and you have a deductible, it will help cover, maybe not with yours, but with, other just like various things. So, just know that program's out there too.
Counselor Townsley.
I'd like, 2 or 3 people have brought up a similar, I've heard it from a lot of other people too, so I'd just like to know that, you guys to know that I've heard it. You've got my support, and obviously we'll figure out a time to try to do something, and it needs to be handled. Something needs to be done, other than just you guys coming up saying there's a problem and then going away and nothing happens. So thank you for coming forward.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I just want to let Lori know that I forwarded her email, your email, to the 3 of you and Chief theirs. And this is not for tonight, but maybe in the future. I am curious about the blue chirper. Is this even legal? I don't know. We need to look into things like this. The other thing I would like to know, and Jillian is here, and this is a DDA discussion to start with, but the areas we did illuminate with security lighting, are they safer? Have we seen reduction in activity? I'm gonna say activity for now.
Okay, I think all of that is something that maybe we can bring back and have a
Yeah.
discussion at maybe a work session upcoming here. Try to keep it constrained because it's a big issue. But that's probably the time to do that.
Do we need a formal motion to put it in a work session, or should we just work session? Okay, excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you guys for coming forward tonight and voicing your concern. I appreciate it. No more responses?
If I could just ask.
Yeah, please.
Somebody had mentioned that they might provide a response to the Take a Minute campaign in your
Okay.
comments here.
Not me.
Take a minute.
I wasn't. Would you like to take a minute?
So Mrs. Reynolds asked us if we could, when she could
Oh,
expect to
right.
hear from us. And so, I think that.
Thank you, Carl.
I do think that should probably be another, brief work session discussion where we can do that, unless we feel like we can do that on the dais, but,
Good.
I
I think we could do it on that.
okay.
For the work session, right? No?
He thinks we can do it.
I
on
was
the
just gonna
dais.
say, I think for something like that, unless you guys want to have a lengthy discussion, it's probably an item we can plug in on a regular agenda on the dais and just get it
To,
done.
to support
So-
the, or not support. Okay.
So if we could get that on the next regularly scheduled meeting so that we're not leaving people waiting for our,
Okay.
thank
Yeah.
you.
But to get anything in the agenda, we need a vote.
Not really. I'm seeing a lot of head nodding up there.
Is it
I-
good enough?
I-
Okay. I just want to make sure we're following the handbook.
Cues.
Yes.
Okay, great. Counselor Smith.
Just to affirm another part of what Ms. Reynolds highlighted is that we have a comprehensive safety action plan on for discussion tonight and potential approval in a month or so. I think she's correct that, as you said in a different context, that design features are a key part of this. Publicity and awareness helps, but design features is what the CSAP is all about. And I think that's going to overlap to help with this.
Okay, thank you. And Counselor Schmal. You're on.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I think there can be synergy between the study that the city is paying for, the safety survey and all of those things that the Take a Minute campaign can be a tool in that bucket if it's incorporated in. I want to acknowledge that most of that effort that has gone into the Take a Minute program has been volunteer effort versus the professional, very expensive program that we're going to be presented with tonight, but they can go together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we'll see none. Well, thank you very much. Thank you again for being here. Moving on to item number 6, the consent agenda. And I'm entertaining a motion to approve it. Counselor Selinsky,
I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
thank you. Motion to approve at this point. Need a second?
Second.
Counselor Wyman, second, without microphone. Let's do it again.
Second.
Thank you. Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? See none. Excellent. That was the consent agenda. Item 7, we moved. Let's move on to item 8, presentation by Colorado Division of Reclamation, Mining and Safety regarding South Canyon and Coal Seam fires.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'm Rod Tarullo, Parks and Recreation Director, and it's my privilege tonight to introduce to you Tara Taffy, who is with Division of Reclamation, Mining and Safety with the state. And she's here tonight to give us an update on our city-owned South Canyon property, specifically with the coal seam fires that are out there. So I'll turn the time over to Tara.
Thank you, Rod.
I was not prepared to talk for 3.
No, you get 3 minutes. That's it. You got 3 and that's it. Yeah.
Like, wow, okay.
Everybody gets 3 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah. I think I have to share. Ryan, I might need you. I need to share. I want to share the entire screen.
Yeah, just
This
share,
one.
right?
This one.
Go ahead and share that.
Okay. And I just want to make sure that it's gonna show the presentation. But it didn't show the presentation. There it goes. Okay, perfect. Okay. For whatever reason, this seems to get harder every year. I get less and less attuned to being able to plug in and go. So thanks for having me tonight. I really appreciate it. Before I get started, I really want to acknowledge the Rodney and his team with the city. The city's been an incredible partner over the last 5 years. So thank you. I haven't been to the council for about 3 years, so I think many of you are new. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background, and then I'm going to kind of run through what's going on out there and kind of our future plans. So for those of you that don't know, South Canyon is out by the landfill. It's just west of Glenwood Springs and west of the West Glenwood exit. Sits above the landfill in South Canyon. We talk about the site in 2 different ways. There's South Canyon East and West. So there's actually 2 underground coal fires kind of associated with the same mine. There's actually a 3rd fire in South Canyon called the Gem, and it's up above the landfill. It's a much lower, it's lower activity, lower priority. I'm not going to talk about that tonight, but I'm happy to another time. So we've done quite a bit of work in South Canyon since 2020. We did a soil seal project on South Canyon East, followed by weed spraying in 21 and 22 to support that effort. There's a quite sizable noxious weed problem in South Canyon that really exacerbates the fire danger associated with the underground coal fire. The weeds just really, really like the warm ground. And so it's kind of always fighting an uphill battle. In 2023, we did the South Canyon West Road realignment. In 2024, we realigned the Tramway mountain bike trail. In 2024, we also did weed spraying and set out to put together a noxious weed mapping and develop a noxious weed management plan for the mine fire areas. We also have been doing a lot of data collection. You know, we've been collecting data and investigating the fires in South Canyon for over, well, this says 20 years, but it's 30 years at this point. We also completed our 2024 mine fire inventory, and this is actually a statewide effort. We have 40 underground coal mine fires in the state. We go out, we collect on the ground data, including, you know, surface temperatures, subsurface temperatures, snowmelt observations. We collect LiDAR to look for surface changes. We do 3D modeling, thermal imagery, lots of things associated with that DRMS mine fire inventory. And that inventory will be posted on our website relatively soon. We just finished our final edits on that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the project work that we've done. So in 2020, we did about a 4.5 acre soil seal over the lower portion of the coal fire. And I guess I really should have probably told you a little bit about the coal fire, but we've passed that point now. So the coal fire is very active, like high on the hillside. Down low in the canyon is generally where the air intakes are for the coal fire. And so in 2020, we sought on the east side of the canyon to seal off some of those air intakes to try and slow the progression of the fire. It's definitely a kick the can down the road effort. It is not a full mitigation. The soil seal included grading about a 5 acre area, putting a 1 foot layer of compacted clay and geotextile followed by 4 feet of soil over top of it. And then doing revegetation on top of that. And then creating surface runoff channels so that we didn't get a lot of erosion and just to manage the surface water on that site. During that effort, there was a wildfire start on I-70 at exit 111, right at the South Canyon exit. And we had to evacuate our crews out for a few days until everything was back to normal. That project was extremely successful in kind of what it was designed to do, which was slow progression of the mine fire. However, what it has done is increase the smoking of that South Canyon East fire significantly. Because, you know, if you all know about a campfire, if you're sitting at a campfire and it's not burning very well, the smoke's pouring off of it and you're moving your chair around. Well, basically we've created a situation where the fire isn't getting as much air. And so it's kind of it's less of an efficient burn, which is causing more smoke on that side of the canyon. However, we did have great success putting the soil seal down and covering it with native vegetation. And I wanted to focus on that just for a moment because native vegetation doesn't dry out and isn't as flammable as like the 7 foot tall thistles that dry out by mid-July and the cheatgrass that surrounds the areas out there, specifically the fire areas in South Canyon. This picture is, I don't have a pointer, but you can see where myself and one of my team members is standing. We're standing on like nice green grass. That's a native Western wheatgrass, different wet wheatgrasses, fescue. And then in the foreground is an area where we didn't do revegetation and haven't sprayed for weeds. And you can see it's basically just thistle and cheatgrass. So our efforts with the weed management plan will be to try and address some of these areas surrounding our reclamation and areas that are outside of the like hot areas within the fire. You know, when we're dealing with the hot areas, we don't want any vegetation, not even native grass. In 2023, we proposed a road alignment. I actually came in front of council in 2022, almost 3 years ago to the day, and discussed the road alignment. We implemented that project in 2023. We had difficulty implementing the design. The road became over steep in sections and too flat in other sections. It's a terrible road. And even with the repairs and realignment we attempted, it's just a terrible road. The current alignment will provide us access for ATVs, for weed spraying and small excavators and work that could be done lower in the canyon. But in order to get high on the west side, we have now unmothballed the other alignment that we had looked at, which I'll show you on the next slide, which comes up from the landfill. We also had a wildfire start on that project, and it kind of highlights how fragile that area is. I mean, the excavator kicked a rock down and it hit a vent and caught a bunch of cheatgrass on fire, which then ran up the hill And I think we had 14 helicopter drops. We had a hotshot crew have to come in and put a fire line in. And so it just really highlighted, again, how hard it is to evacuate a group out of there. There's very little communication. And then just how, when it's dry out there, how kind of delicate it is. Another kind of challenge that we had was we created, we worked with the city, and I apologize, I had rewritten this section and it's not on this slideshow. But we had worked with the city to close the mountain bike trails while we were working during the work hours, just from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's really steep and dangerous when we're moving around with heavy equipment. We kick a rock down. I mean, we've had rocks roll down and land on the county road. And so to have mountain bikers down below us is very concerning. We ended up having to close the trail for about 8 weeks while we were working up there. But again, we only closed it during work hours. So, the trails would open in the evening and they were open early in the morning. But again, we are going to reevaluate a different road alignment, and that is this slide. So the green alignment that you see is about a 2.5 mile road that would come up from the landfill. There's several advantages to this. The purple road is the existing road. So much shorter, but has steepness of 25 to 30% in some places, maybe even steeper than that. It's really tough. My Jeep can make it up there after it's been bladed, but I wouldn't take anything bigger than that up there. Anyway, so the green is something that we're gonna kind of unmothball and start to do the NEPA analysis and everything to see if it's even feasible to do it. And that'll be maybe another visit here once we have done some of that analysis. The advantage to that is it gets kind of all of our construction access, everything out of the main corridor of South Canyon. Yeah.
Can you orient us to the map?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have a pointer. I would be,
Can you
so
guys clickers?
the purple, if you look at the end of the purple line, sorry, I'll talk in the microphone. If you look at the end of the purple line and go straight up, that is the South Canyon Road. Okay.
Which way's
That's-
north?
that's
North
what I'm
is
saying.
this way. There's an arrow in there. Oh, I'm sorry. North is to the,
Oh, I see it.
north is that way.
It says option 2, that's the south.
Yeah, so the landfill is to the left, or to the, just under and to the where the end of the green line is on the kind of towards the end of the map. Yeah. Yeah, I had to look at this for a while too, and it's a really tough picture, so I apologize. Anyways, so it would get, this alignment would get us out of the main corridor of South Canyon when we're working with equipment and moving around, at least, where there is some recreation. We wouldn't be impacting that if we were kind of tucked away up behind the landfill. Another advantages to this is it takes us right past the gem mine fire, so we could potentially loop in some mitigation for that. So lastly, we did the 2024 Tramway Trail alignment. And so when we were working, we had a rockfall issue. We had a lot of rock come down onto the trail. We had 2 vertical holes opening with the Tramway Trail that actually, if you look at this historical map, they line up with 2 of the mine openings. And sorry, I don't have a point. Can you see my cursor? Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Look at that. Amazing. So this hole and this hole over here. So there are subsidences associated with those that are opening up right next to the trail. Because of that, we worked with the city to realign the Tramway Trail away from the mine fire and the rockfall zone, additionally away from the mine workings. So it comes down to the bottom of the canyon, and kind of when it goes through where the old mine workings were. We also did about 600 feet of the Lightning Bug Trail. Now this cost us close to $50,000 to implement that work. And unfortunately, currently the old trail is still being used. And so I'm working with the city to try and figure out a way to, get rid of the trail, at least for the first 150 feet or something. We put some rocks and things there when we did the work, but people are going around it. So that kind of leads us to our current conditions. In 2024, when we were doing our inventory work, we identified a new hotspot on South Canyon West. We immediately came out and cleared vegetation from 100 feet radius around it. The hot temperatures peaked this winter at 900 degrees on the surface. They're currently about 600 degrees. We believe that the underground fire has worked its way through fractures into the coal outcrop at that location. There's an additional area just above the road that's starting to kind of do the same thing. And we get this weird bulge where the creates a fracture and then the land kind of bulges out. It's a landslide worry, and then it's hot. And we've had this start wildfires on some of our other mine fires. It's also sort of what was happening at the area that caught on fire in 23 when we were working out there. So we've identified these two areas to implement some emergency excavation work that will begin in late May, probably around May 19th. And we'll excavate those two hot spots. We may need to close the trail for portions of that work. I know it's really unpopular. I'm a mountain biker. I love it. Those trails are great. But when we're working up there, we're so worried about hurting somebody. So this green arrow points to the new hotspot. So this was a hotspot we've been watching since 2001. This was a snowmelt photo taken in 2001. You can see it's pretty small at that time. We weren't too concerned about it. We had the vegetation. It was down in the dirt. There wasn't any vegetation around it. Oh no. Let's see if I can, it's not gonna show the next photo. Oh well. The next photo was a thermal imagery, which shows that hotspot has worked its way up into, let's see if I can go back one. It's worked its way up into these trees. And oak brush and pinions and everything that's up in here. So, and that's where that really hot spot is. So we're going to excavate in this area here. And then up here, you can see this is our old road, or this is our road. And you can see this area of snowmelt. That is that area that is kind of deforming as well. So we're going to get in and excavate that. Our potential impacts are to the trail. We'll work with the city and mountain bike community on messaging. Our timing is approximately May 19th to July 1. And then future work, do I have time? Am I good? Okay, great. So the IIJA Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that was passed in late 2021 gave us a big influx in funding, which is why we've been able to actually start planning things in South Canyon. And that's yearly for 15 years. We have quite a bit of funding that we will be requesting through the grant process for our work in South Canyon. So, but our future work is contingent on continued funding of the infrastructure law. If funding continues at its current levels, our future work will likely include our 2025 work, which is our emergency work, additional weed spraying. So there is going to be a vegetation removal, weed spraying component of the emergency work to kind of there's a big cheatgrass patch, and then there's a big thistle patch that are adjacent to two of these hot spots that we're going to be working on. So we're going to clear that vegetation out and then spray it with a pre-emergent. The pre-emergents last a few years out there at best. And then we're going to implement our weed management plan, which will be more of a targeted, in some areas it'll be cheatgrass and then fertilizer and revegetation. So trying to outcompete the weeds instead of just spraying them over and over and over and over. And then actual removal and pre-emergent spraying in the areas that we think shouldn't have vegetation. where we get surface temperatures that are high. And then we are going to be doing a drilling investigation, hopefully on South Canyon East. And that drilling investigation is in order to develop our design phase in 2026, which is a grout curtain, which doesn't mean much to you guys, but essentially we're gonna try and block off the fire from continuing to move to the east on South Canyon East. So isolate. And then a surface seal eventually. So that, we have kind of a lot of work planned on east. West, we're still in conceptual design. We're also kind of scratching our heads on what to do with west. It's bigger fire. It's a steeper site, and the access is just terrible. So we're working through kind of our design on that. I think the first thing we have to do is develop a sustainable access to the site before we can do anything else. I do want to not set the expectation that with the work that we're planning that we are going to fully extinguish the fires. Our goal is to have them contained and managed at the end of 15 years so that when the city has to go back to managing these sites on their own, or with only minimal help from us, that's something that is manageable. No more 900 degrees on the surface, that it's just too scary out there. So we do have some significant safety challenges on that site. The wildfire risk is high anywhere around the fire. We've seen that. We've had to evacuate twice. We've had wildfire out there while we're working. During the South Canyon Management Plan, the folks that were putting that together interviewed me about what my recommendations would be. DRMS recommends that we maintain a minimum of 1,000-foot buffer around the fire sites with no recreation. Unfortunately, the trails and stuff are there now below it, but if you look at the red box, it sort of outlines that perimeter that we would like to see, specifically to the east and west, or I'm sorry, north and south. Let's get backwards. We need a big area if we're going to do excavation. The fire is in a very tight location, and if we're going to be excavating hundreds of thousands of cubic yards potentially in order to get down into the fire and extinguish it, we have to have some space to work, and so that's why we've asked for such a big buffer. Also, the fires emit carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide gas, and methane, and those are all relatively toxic. I know if I spend a day out on the site breathing it, I feel pretty terrible at the end of the day. So you probably don't want to be chugging up a hill on a mountain bike, sucking coal mine fire fumes. I don't know. Just thought. Anyways, and then also one of the bigger challenges as well is just the lack of available cell phone communications out there. T-Mobile has service, minimal, and that's it. Luckily, the last 2 crews I had out there that I had to evacuate, 1 person on each crew had T-Mobile. So our additional challenges, it's a really busy map, are the proposed mountain bike trails. Roaring Fork Mountain Bike Association has proposed trails that could impact our ability to work on South Canyon West. And I just wanted to highlight those and just ask the council that and I'll explain this map in a second, but as you move forward with approving any work that might come down over the next few years, that you just take into consideration the mine fire and the work that needs to be done there in the next several years. So this, can you see my cursor? Yeah. So this right here is within that 1,000-foot buffer. This trail, this is just the next ridge over from the coal fire. So we actually have coal fire debris and everything that comes down. You can see it right here. It actually comes down into that valley. That's a big thistle outbreak that actually, there was a landslide there, and then now it's full of thistle, and that's part of the area of concern that we're gonna be working on this year is right above it is that hot spot. So anyways, I just would ask that the council take into consideration the coal fire when any of this is coming along. And then one of the other issues that we have, and it's not anything that, I don't really know what the solution is, but, or maybe more messaging, to the mountain bike community about the danger when we're working out there, when the trail is closed and obeying those closures. I mean, we kick rocks down the size of a Jeep, you know, and that it would easily kill someone. And we don't want to hurt anybody while we're out there working. And that's it. So, I will take any questions that you have. Thank you for listening. And, yeah, we'll try and get our arms wrapped around these fires in the next 10 years. I've been working out here for 10 years.
Okay, excellent. Well, I saw you 3 years ago. I was here and now you're back and it's as informative as it was back then. Before we get into questions here, real quick, who closes the trail and who monitors that? Is that us or is that you guys?
I think the city,
Is that
the
us?
city has
Okay.
helped us with,
Okay.
the closures in the past.
Okay, excellent. Councillor Solinsky.
So my question is actually for staff and for you. For that section that's been realigned, that's currently closed, do we have any posted sign out there that maybe is strongly worded that talks about the safety and the risk that they're taking by circumventing the closure?
I don't know. I haven't been out there.
No,
Go
not
back to
for
it.
stating the safety of the trail. We do have, like, the only signage that we have in those regards is that you don't need to call 911 when you see smoke.
Got it.
But for the trail closures, we've closed them, that we're talking now to the point that it may come to just taking an excavator out just to demolish any
Just
remnants of the
destroying.
trail. Yeah, because no matter whatever boulders, trees, or whatever else that we lay across, it just continues to be used.
Got it. I mean, I hate that we're finding you all in that position because, here we're trying to create an amenity and an asset and it's being disrespected. But I know we're trying to keep it natural. I also feel that clear is kind. And if we can put clear, strongly worded messaging out there on the site that says it, not only that it's closed, but why, maybe that would have a greater impact. So just a thought.
Thank you. Councillor Schmal.
Yeah, please help me with the map. I didn't even know we had bike trails in South Canyon. And the best orientation for me is the road to the dump and where the dump is.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't have great map of it, but if can you see my cursor?
Yes?
Okay, so just about maybe another 1,000 feet this direction is the turn to the dump. So
So this is all down in the lower area.
no, this is in the upper. So after you turn, it keeps going after you turn to the dump, and that's where the mine fires and the trails. There are trails down below as well, and then they continue past the landfill road and go up canyon, basically to the BLM property or to the BLM boundary.
More canyon left, like from.
Yeah, I wonder.
You can.
So
So I have,
that's,
so
that's
this
some
is,
serious bike trail then.
yeah,
That's-
yeah, they're great
These-
trails. I
these-
mean.
These are no sissies that are up there riding.
No. But even the trail beyond there, which is even better, that goes all the way up, that one's really pretty steep and tough. It's great. They're great trails. So. But yeah, so you can see them here on this. This is our road. The trails are down. Actually, you can't see the trails. This picture might be before the trails were built. But the trails are down in this area. And then if you go back up to the north, the turn to the landfill is like right here.
Then I have one more question. How clear is it, rather than having a month or 6-week period where you're gonna be working up there? How clear is it what days and what hours you're gonna work?
So when we were out there working, we had like the big plastic panels that said trail closed for mine reclamation, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I mean, at every spot where you could get
Where you
on
could
the trail.
access the trail.
Yeah,
And they were being ignored.
correct. Yeah. And I don't know if I can't remember if there was. I mean, some people certainly were there, there's always the bad actors, but they're the ones you see that you're like, oh my God, we're gonna kill him with a rock coming down. But I think there were, when they were there for the whole duration, weren't they? Yeah, okay. Yeah, they were there the whole time. And then the shows were open on the weekends because we weren't working on the weekend.
And did you work every day that the signs were there?
Yes.
Thank you. Counselor Smith.
I have a handful. I'll try to consolidate them. Thank you. You're recommending 1,000 feet buffer around crucial points. But just to be sure I understand, buffer from what? From human activity or?
Yeah, I mean, just from having the public kind of wandering around our trails. It's just, I mean, we saw when that fire started, that thing traveled 500 feet in a matter of seconds, in the high wind and the dry vegetation. So just to give a little bit of a buffer, also like, especially on the east side where the emissions, well, and on the west side, I guess, where the emissions are really high, just to allow those gases to dissipate.
But there aren't other structures or city activities or equipment that are, it's really recreation that you want?
Yeah, I mean, well, there's nothing else really out there.
Okay.
I mean, if somebody proposed a house or a campground there, I would recommend not. I mean, I can't make land use recommendations. My only recommendation is that you provide a buffer around a buffer for development around the fire.
At 2 points, you mentioned the notion of blocking the fire from moving farther east, and you talked separately about getting the fires contained and managed for a handoff back to the city. How in the world do you accomplish or define stopping or containing?
So, I'm gonna use South Canyon East because that's the one that we actually have like a little bit better of a plan and handle on. So if you look at this photo, the fire expression so where you see the fire on the surface, basically stops right here. The outcrop's on fire, at the top of this bench, or by on fire, it's smoking, it's smoldering. It's not really like, there's no flames or anything, but, to the east, there is an old air shaft, in the mine, that was in the mine. We closed that in the early 2000s and it did not exhibit signs of fire. And so we expect, that when we drill into the coal seams above where we're seeing fire, that we will actually find areas that are not burning. And in that case, we will try and segregate the burning portion of the site from the non-burning portion by creating a physical barrier made out of grout, cement.
Great.
Yeah.
That was where I was.
Yeah, sorry, made out of cement.
Do you use? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
so it'll be made out of cement. And in this location, the geology, the coal seams are almost vertical. And so there will be like a width of the coal seam that we'll have to get through. So we'll try and remove all of the coal down to as deep as we can get. I mean, the mines in that location are probably 300 plus feet deep. I don't think we'll be able to go that deep, but maybe we'll go 150 to 200 feet and create this a physical barrier. We are also looking at potentially, and when we do that work, kind of like impregnating the cement with nitrogen, gaseous nitrogen, which will keep it cool as it goes down, and also displace oxygen so we can't continue to catch coal on fire as we're drilling through. Because that's always the concern, is that you're gonna make the fire worse by drilling it because you throw a bunch of oxygen into a fire and that makes it burn hotter. So.
You mentioned Roaring Fork Mountain Bicycling Association, who I know are real good about promoting riding and telling their members where to go get the best rides. They've got quite a network
They do,
and quite good PR skills.
yes.
Have you or your partnership with the city staff gotten them in on this Don't Ride Here effort? And have they been helpful?
Yeah, I think we partner up if there's any notices that need to go out to the public, because you're right, they do have a large social network that they can share information with. So, if we need to get info out, they do help out, between Bree and Mike over there, RFBA help to get that word out.
Good, thanks. And I think my final question, you talked about a significant amount of funding through the Infrastructure Act. How secure is your funding in this new administration?
I don't know. I mean, we're business as usual until it's not, I think is the path that we're taking. We haven't been told that our funding has been stopped. We did have a freeze in our funding for a period of time. The funds were unfrozen after about, I don't know, they were frozen for maybe a month earlier this
You got an
winter.
official unfrozen notice?
We
Wow.
were unfrozen.
Huh.
However, we hope that our funding continues at its current level through budget reconciliation and everything else that's going on. We'll see.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No, we'll see none. Thank you. Anybody from the public have a question? Nobody here? Matt doesn't, no. Excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank
I
you for being
appreciate it.
here.
Yeah.
This was very informative.
Stay safe out.
Yeah, and get those fires out. Next 10 years. Excellent. Moving on, item number 9, Comprehensive Safety Action Plan Update. And that would be Lee.
Hello, Mayor, members of council. Thanks for having us tonight to give you an update on the Comprehensive Safety Action Plan. I'm here to introduce Jenny Godwin of Consor and Chloe Ward of Alta, who are our lead consultants on this project. Just to give you a little background, this has gone on about a year now, and we're hoping to wrap it up here in the next month. You may ask, why are we doing more studies? Well, this is a study. Of course, we want to get the data. We want to identify safety issues, countermeasures that'll help, solve these things. But really, the primary reason for this is it's a necessary step in order for us to go forth with implementation funding in the future. So it's really a necessary step to provide us a framework to go for projects that we can actually put in the ground. So with that, I will bring on our 2 guests who are attending virtually here and let it go. Jenny.
Thanks for the introduction, Lee. Hi, everyone in council. Thanks for having us here tonight. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Okay, everybody able to see that all right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, great. Thanks for confirming. Great. Okay, so we'll just dive in. We're really going to provide some high-level takeaways tonight, not wanting to use too much time on this part of the presentation and really having a good amount of time for discussion. So 4 sort of overall elements we'll walk through. We'll provide just a tiny bit of background. Lee did a great job of that already. At the beginning, we'll talk through the recommendations development process that fed through the CZAP development. Real quick touch on engagement phase 2 takeaways from earlier this year, and then wrap up with some of the key takeaways from the plan itself. Okay, so first, just one quick slide on the background here. As Lee mentioned, this plan is really focused on transportation safety across the city, funded with Safe Streets and Roads for All action plan dollars, and really brings kind of all the pieces and parts together, from data collection to community feedback, to analysis, recommendations, and project development. So really focusing on those actionable steps to move the city forward towards a safer transportation transportation future. And there's quite a lot more details in diving into the safety analysis, the crash data pieces, the high injury network and the high risk network development, and all those important elements in your packet. Okay, so moving ahead to the recommendations development process, I'll just walk through a series of 5 slides, kind of breaking down the various inputs and processes, just to give a sense of all the various elements that fed into this project's development. So we began, as Lee mentioned, the project itself kicked off about last July, and around September is when we started our safety analysis input process. So really analyzing 5 years of CDOT crash data that led to the development of the high injury network and the high risk network. So really zooming in on the areas of greatest current crash risk and future crash risk as well. We had a really robust phase 1 outreach process over a series of months, summer into fall. We heard from folks online, in person, did pop-up events, hosted a school focus group, and that really led us ahead to the future strategy identification process. We also did a deeper dive on multimodal safety in particular. We also had crash data from RAFTA, which is really helpful to dive in on the transit analysis process. And then we actually conducted data collection counts out in the field, which the city team helped with as well. And then some final pieces that we're still working on and wrapping up through the end of the project is really looking in detail at signal timing on State Highway 82, knowing that that's a focus area, both on the high injury network and high risk network, and really a community feedback hotspot as well. So that first phase carried us through to the beginning of this year, when we started really building out the projects and policies and other strategies that will lead the CSAP forward to its next steps. So within the CSAP itself, you may have seen the countermeasure toolbox. I believe that's chapter 4, and that's a really important deliverable that feeds into all of the various strategies on a systemic level that the city can apply to advance those safety outcomes. We, project team is also developing fact sheets. So we'll look at these in a moment, but basically 9 focus area corridors and intersections that were prioritized for a number of reasons. And that those, as Lee mentioned, those really deliverable takeaway projects that can then be funded in the future. We also identified those both systemic and location-specific recommendations and paired all that with an educational focus with the safety marketing campaign that's also located in the appendix of the CSAP. So all those pieces really led us through to that prioritization process, which was also at the beginning of the year and fed into a number of other development elements, a transportation access need index. That was a chance for more feedback where we went back to the community both in person and online to double check that the types of recommendations we were bringing forward made sense. We of course met with council at that time as well as transportation committee, and really dove into that feasibility piece as well. So that led us to our draft, which you, of course, now have in front of you, that really dives into those different tiers of recommendations. So thinking about those quicker wins, those shorter term actions, ones that are more midterm, and then the longer term. And of course, funding being such a critical component, that of course is kind of its own chapter in the plan and has an appendices related to it as well. So really thinking about how to actionize these projects and strategies to be funded in the future. And that ties in, of course, to those focus area exhibits, which are not included in this current iteration of the draft, but will be included in the final. Okay, and I'll pass off to Chloe Ward, who's here as well, to provide just a quick overview of phase 2 engagement.
Yes, hi everyone. So last time we spoke with you all in March, we were kind of in the middle of our second round of engagement. We had another round of the online survey and an online mapping activity, which we got about 200 responses for the survey, most of those from residents. But we also did a bigger push this second phase for in-person engagement, trying to, have conversations with folks in the community and meet them around the city where they live and where they play. So we had 5 community meetings focused mostly at the schools around town. So one at Sopers Elementary, one at the high school, the middle school, Glenwood Springs Elementary, and then a final one at the community center. We also hosted 2 pop-ups, one at the 27th Street RAFTA station, where we were able to talk to people as they were getting on and off of the RAFTA and Ride Glenwood buses. And we also had a pop-up at one of the high school basketball games where we were able to talk with a lot of families, high school students, and we were playing gypsum. That the high schoolers were playing gypsum that night. So we had some people who weren't local to Glenwood, but were pretty familiar with pretty regional, close neighbor there. We had about 60 people that we engaged with at these in-person meetings, and the questions were the same on the survey and in person, just trying to get a sense of, you know, are we on the right track with the types of recommendations that we are making in the CSAP? And we had a mapping activity where they could give, you know, where they would like to see some of the recommendations that we are thinking of kind of holistically around the city. Some of the key themes that we heard in this second phase were really just kind of extensions of what we heard during the first phase of engagement, where we were asking, you know, where people feel uncomfortable or unsafe traveling around Glenwood Springs, and and why they might feel that way. And then phase 2, you know, we heard they want enhanced sidewalks and crossings because there were a lot of locations where people don't necessarily feel safe at those locations. A lot of interest in improved bicycle infrastructure, dedicated places for people to bike, separate from pedestrians, or just more space for them to interact with pedestrians on our trails. Signalized crossings, looking for either, you know, longer crossing times or more enhanced crossing experiences where they are given the right of way to cross safely. A lot of support for speed and red light enforcement at our signals and along segments of streets in Glenwood Springs. We know kind of the city and council are already having some of those conversations, but it was good to hear that 73% of the survey respondents and a good majority of the people we spoke with in person are supportive of those types of recommendations. And then a general support for traffic calming and speed reduction related to a lot of the concerns and observations of speeding on streets in Glenwood Springs.
Thanks, Chloe. Okay, so lastly, we'll walk through some of the big picture takeaways from the CSAP and then have a good amount of time for questions or comments as well. So one of the first pages of the CSAP walks through those goals, right? So an important one, of course, is supporting not only local safety goals, but also those at the regional and statewide level. Of course, reducing serious and fatal crashes across all transportation modes, no matter how people are getting around the city. An important first component, of course, was really analyzing that crash data in detail, understanding where those hotspots were, both from a crash data perspective and a community feedback perspective. Using a really data-driven systemic analysis method to identify locations of risk and locations where crashes are currently occurring. Engagement with community members, such a crucial component really throughout the entire process. Prioritizing those safety improvements in the highest risk and highest need locations. Identifying those safety countermeasures that are very data-driven. Thinking about funding and ensuring those long-term investments and those sustainable funding sources to move these projects ahead. And then thinking about fair distribution of benefits, so understanding what communities need the improvements most. And then that green graphic on the right is the City of Glenwood Springs Vision Zero goals. So a really important component of a CSAP is having those firm, urgent goals to be addressing and working towards. So they're a little small, so I'll just read them out here. The first one being reducing the number of fatal crashes to 0 by 2030. We didn't have a slide on that here, but there were about 1,500 total crashes in the city and about 15 that were either serious injury or fatal crashes within the 5-year period that we analyzed. The second goal was to reduce the number of severe injury intersection crashes by 50% by 2030. We know that intersections were a hotspot for crashes in general. And then that vulnerable user focus, so reducing the number of severe injury, pedestrian and bicycle related crashes to 0 by 2030, of which there were about 15 as well. So one slide here, and this was a really great suggestion from Transportation Commission when we met with them recently, was how does the city really stack up from a peer city perspective? So thinking about Glenwood, of course, being a very seasonally driven place, a tourism component, that kind of mountain town winter feel. So we pulled in a couple peer cities and counties just to understand in terms of sort of total crash numbers, and perhaps most importantly, looking at those KSI or killed and serious injury crash numbers. So we see Glenwood here at about 1%, which is good to see, right? When we're thinking about achieving 0, we see that Glenwood is, that's not so far on the horizon compared to some other cities where KSI crashes are a really large percentage or just a really high number in general. So that provides a little more context there. And then I'll speak for a minute about those focus area projects that I mentioned. So this map has a lot of great data on it. It has the high injury network, the high risk network, and then in yellow or blue, the focus area roadways, and then intersections. So these were developed working closely with staff to understand priority areas, ongoing projects, looking at the crash data, hearing from the community. So these are the 9 ultimate focus area projects that have those kind of specific countermeasures assigned to them, and then the exhibits that we're in the process of wrapping up that will be included in the final CSAP as well. So I have a little more info on each of these 9 on the next slide, tying them into the reason for inclusion. So the high injury network, high risk network, or community feedback presence, and then some high level countermeasure toolbox recommendations for each. So for example, 6th Street, some recommendations along segments of both 6 and Highway 6 for center median barriers, access management, location like 8th Street, so a city roadway, and hearing some concerns there about folks crossing and visibility. So some quick wins there with crosswalk improvements and some intersection upgrades. So stop or yield control, for example, just to make those interactions feel a little more controlled and safer. Looking at somewhere like Midland, we heard a lot of feedback about speeding on Midland, probably one of the top locations where folks were sharing that kind of concern. So good candidate location for speed radar enforcement, making some of the signals feel a little bit safer with a leading pedestrian interval, giving folks a little extra and sort of a head start time to cross. So just a couple examples to walk through there. Maybe I'll call out one more here, 10th Street, another really important street. We heard a lot of feedback from, especially from the school community, knowing that's a really important safe route to school for people accessing the elementary school. We did kind of a school safety focus there. So thinking about the addition of curb extensions and bulb outs. So just kind of reducing those turning radii, restricting right turn on red, knowing that can be a concerning trend for crashes, and providing some other improvements for that to feel like a safer roadway where folks can travel, whether they're biking, walking, or driving. A couple more I'll call it here. 82, really the entire city, segment of 82 is on either the high injury network, high risk network, or both. So a lot of really good tools in the toolbox to address concerns on this corridor, and a very detailed set of exhibits that'll be in the final plan. So looking at a lot of different sort of signal related updates that can help with efficiency and flow. As Chloe mentioned earlier, we heard great support for traffic law enforcement cameras. So red light running being a really major concern we heard from the community on that corridor. And then speaking to the access control plan that's been adopted from CDOT. So some potential median and other access management improvements there. And then a couple targeted intersections on 82. 23rd, for example, was our #1 community feedback hotspot. So we are looking at some improvements there, really focusing on the bike ped navigation perspective. And just a couple last items. As you'll have noticed, the way the plan is organized is in kind of a strategies and actions bucket. So we have these 3 main categories from the safe system approach that really help us dial in on different types of improvements. So under the safer roads category, there are 5 different sort of high level areas that then have specific actions under them. So really focusing on areas of interest, thinking about signage, bike ped enhancements, really enhancing that infrastructure for folks traveling in a multimodal way throughout the city. knowing that intersection operations and visibility are really crucial since we're seeing a lot of crash patterns in those locations. And then thinking about the people using the roadway, so how to raise kind of general community awareness about programs and policies and new exciting types of projects that city staff are installing, and making sure folks understand how to use them, the benefits, and some pieces and parts there. Knowing that speeds play a really important role in reducing crashes if we can reduce speeds and reduce those conflicts. So thinking through ways to manage speeds through a lot of different elements there. And then one last piece I'll touch on that is also an appendice that I mentioned earlier is the safety marketing campaign. So really thinking about individual countermeasures and assigning good examples of safety marketing campaigns that have been effective in helping folks kind of connect the dots on the importance of these different elements, like restricting right turn on red, or traffic calming, or safe routes to school. So these are some great kind of pure city examples the city can reference as well. So one last slide, thinking ahead to next steps. Ongoing, the project team, as I mentioned, is finishing up those focus area exhibits that will be included in the final plan. We online right now have a high-level community review of the CZAP ongoing, so folks can click and view the full plan in its entirety, or just the existing condition, or sorry, the executive summary that has a good kind of smaller but pretty comprehensive overview of the plan findings. And then, of course, the project team will be back in June, meeting with you again and working on that ultimate adoption piece that's so critical to move the CZAP forward. And then just a couple sort of thinking ahead future outlook items. The plan really focuses on 2025 to 2030. So that means likely the next update the city will be advancing would be in 2031. There's an important component of CZAPs, which is providing that kind of transparent reporting to the community. So the city will be working on documenting their success towards achieving these actions and strategies in the future. And then, of course, that funding piece. So, pursuing funding opportunities, as Lee mentioned, for those focus area projects. And I will pause there to take any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Very informative. And we'll start with Councilor Selinsky.
Thank you very much. I was just kind of going through the presentation that I have, and there's one intersection you guys have identified as high risk over by Glowood Middle and the McBooth apartments there. But it wasn't clear to me the roundabout at Melray, and then it's kind of adjacent to a bus stop. And I noticed that with that roundabout, I see a lot of really kind of uncomfortable, not very safe pedestrian auto interactions right there with the gas station on one side and there's a dispensary on the other side. I see a lot of people going back and forth. I don't know if that was on your map. I was noticing like your respondents, 214 survey responses and 60 in person out of 10,000 people. I'm wondering if we missed a few. And so I didn't know if there was maybe, I don't know, any input from law enforcement perhaps, like with calls that they've gotten or anything like that that didn't make the report.
Yeah, all good questions. I can start, and Lee and Chloe can definitely dive in on that as well. So first, to speak to the Melray Road roundabout area, that is within the Melray Road roundabout itself, and then to the east is one of our focus areas. So, for example, we heard a lot of feedback from folks crossing to access those bus stops, particularly on the south side. It's right near kind of a truck pullout right off I-70. Yes, there's an I-70 ramp. There's a lot going on there, and we heard a lot of concern on that location. Okay. So that is an important focus area, looking at improvements to the bus stop. So high visibility crossing, we're proposing the rectangular rapid flashing beacons to access those bus stops. So making that a much safer experience, and even adding some yield control on that ramp that's coming off right there from I-70 right past the roundabout. So yes, great area to focus on, and that's definitely a priority in that location. And then to speak to law enforcement feedback, we did meet with various stakeholder groups throughout the process. And we did meet with Fire and PD a few months back to talk through our initial focus area locations and just gather any feedback from them if there's any kind of access management or emergency response elements that we should be aware of. We shared the initial exhibit drafts with them, so they've been an important partner, and of course will continue to be as the designs move ahead to more detailed stages. They're just at sort of 10% level right now, so still a lot of details to work out ahead, but yeah, definitely a really important stakeholder work to work with there. And then speaking to the feedback response, we did certainly receive more feedback in that first phase. That was where we received more than 500 pins and 500 survey responses, and so we did kind of expect a little bit of tapering off in phase 2, just in the sense that we were getting to kind of really detailed asks like, do you support, you know, speed enforcement cameras, or do you support medians or other kind of elements there? So we did expect a bit of a tapering off there. So that wasn't too surprising, but I hear you that I think there's always a benefit to hearing from the most people we can. And I think as the city moves these exhibits forward and works on these focus areas, there'll be a lot of other opportunities for future engagement, but I'll let Lee add anything there that he'd like to as well.
I think that covered it really well, but that is, you know, a high speed area and it's 4 lanes wide with no median. And that's kind of what this study is showing, that those aren't really great for our safety around town.
No, and it's close to a school, it's close to, so I didn't see that called out specifically, so I just wanted to just assure that was in there.
And we're actually looking at moving the bus stop that goes westbound there a little bit closer to that intersection to align them better, and create more of that, a traffic calming element of there.
Awesome. And are there going to be, is there going to be outreach like at the markets or anything as this moves forward, or will we be done data collecting at that point?
Yeah, at this point, our outreach efforts are completed.
Gotcha.
We asked you what's wrong and do you like these solutions? And,
Right.
you know, those are the 2 questions,
Perfect.
really.
Thank you.
I guess there's maybe one caveat to that point, that the draft CSAP is up on the project website for people to view. And Jenny, remind me what the timeline is on that. But we're kind of in a third touch point of engagement, but it is, you know, for people to view the draft CSAP and provide kind of high level comments.
And really, as you're reviewing it, if you have any questions, direct them my way.
Okay, good to know. Councillor Schmall.
Thank you for a exhaustive and well-documented study. I have a few comments about it. On page 28, the data limitations, and I'm frustrated somewhat in this capacity with all of the technology that we have, and yet the data comes in, we're dealing with 2023 data, right? And maybe some 2024 data, and we're almost halfway through 2025. Will this report be capable of having the new data fed into it to get updated results once we're done, or do we have to engage a whole new study in order to enter in the new data?
Yeah, I could speak to kind of the data time period. So from my understanding, CDOT goes through a pretty robust data cleaning process before they release their data to the public. So unfortunately, there is often a year or so delay. So this was kind of the latest 5-year window that we had data through 2023 to grab that from. And we did grab RAFTA data as well. And theirs was, I think, a little more recent with that, you know, less of a cleaning process there. But the goal certainly would be, and it'll be up to the city to make this decision, but typically these CSAPs cover kind of a 5-year window, and then looking ahead 5 years, and then as I mentioned in like 2031 would be when the city's providing that update, and that would include pulling the latest series of data, developing, you know, readjusting the high-entry network and high-risk network based on the new data, and kind of carrying forward with that process. But that doesn't mean the city can't do any sort of interim updates or, you know, double check things on hotspots to see if anything's changing as new countermeasures are installed or some more immediate effects there. But feel free to add anything else you'd like to as well.
No, I mean, it is complicated by how crash data is collected by the various agencies and then how it needs to come together. But yeah, we started this in the middle of 24, so we were able to get 23's data set and back 5 years from there. So Jenny mentioned we're going to need to kind of evaluate this each year and give kind of an update as far as how things are working. And I'm looking forward to getting, kind of a template of what that looks like so we can produce that on a timely basis each year to give us, are we doing well? Are we not and need to do better?
On page 45, I see council has already approved this program as one of the future actions, but the wording says that it's already been approved.
I'm just pulling that up on my side to double check, make sure we're not framing that inaccurately. So we talk about, presenting the draft CDOT to council in May. So here we are now, and then incorporating feedback. Oh, that's a good catch on our framework there. It said council should officially adopt, plans to officially adopt, or intends to officially adopt. We can make that a little more soft to not have that commitment solidified there. That's a good catch.
And the study, I think, does give us obvious actions and priority areas. So altogether, it served its purpose, I think.
Great.
Thank you. Councillor Weimer.
Jenny, thank you. Can you talk a bit more about uncontrolled intersection improvements and what that is?
Yeah, thank you for calling that out. Yeah, I know some of our terminology. It's always good to double check or describe it in an easy to understand way. So essentially uncontrolled intersections would be where there is not a signal, a stop sign or a yield sign. So there's also partially controlled intersections where there might be a stop sign on two directions, but no control for, say, the main street. And something we heard a lot of feedback from the community on was that some of the locations in town, say kind of west in the neighborhoods of west of 82, folks felt concerns, especially if they were biking or walking, that there was a lack of visibility or sort of communication between various users where they would have to wait a really long time to cross because no one saw them, or there felt like kind of a stop and go or some concern about getting across safely. So a fairly easy improvement, right, of adding either stop or yield control at some or all locations is a way to kind of formalize that, checking each other and checking who's at the intersection so everyone can get across safely.
Is there any way that we can mandate training into like driver's ed or something, how to behave at a four-way stop? Crying out loud.
I hear that. Yeah, I have those issues daily in Denver as well, where I live. Yeah.
I spent
Your John Prine song coming along.
seriously. Councilor Zelinski brought up a good question just about the 161 and are we reaching out? I think that was the number. Are we reaching out enough? But then Jenny, you said something about 500, right? The 500 pins and the 500.
One.
Right?
So two
Are you-
two phases of outreach.
Are you broadcasting that number as loudly as maybe you should?
Fair point. Yeah, fair point. Yeah, we were very impressed with the size of Glenwood to have that much
Well,
feedback in the first
At the very
phase.
least, it's a lot bigger than 161. So maybe just as we continue, we always just try to maximize the engagement that we did get. And then Lee, when the time comes, I'm sorry, I'm eating a hard candy. It was bad timing. When the time comes, I'd really like to see red light cameras on 82. Is that a wholly different process than putting them on city-owned streets?
I believe the process is the same regardless of city or CDOT streets.
Okay.
It all needs to be approved by CDOT, these speed cameras. I'm not sure.
Oh,
if that
even on
goes
like
red
on a
light
side
cameras.
city street, it's still a state approval.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. With these cameras at this stage in the game, they've just, really adopted this
Brought 'em
technology.
back.
so,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're keeping an eye on everything.
Okay.
But can I ask where? All of 82.
End to end.
Okay. I didn't know if you had a
No.
special zone, but
I feel like every.
I always
time
like to
meeting
know
you, I see-
where.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you both, everyone.
Right by Taco Bell.
Hang on. Councillor Townsley.
Okay, so right by Taco Bell. that intersection. the old
You're
Segway.
next.
Oh, I'm still not?
No, you're next.
Oh.
Counselor Townsley.
He asked his question, I was gonna use to just.
Well, he's gonna have to hang for a second.
So, and Counselor Weimer, I think kind of at least started into my question is what is our appetite in process? Where are we with bringing speed cameras in, making them enforceable? Or is that something we want to do? Is that something that could be done? Where are we in that process?
Yeah, we're currently in the process of employing 2 cameras. Do you want to speak to that?
I'm gonna let you go. Okay, I was gonna say, we are going to have, part of the process, I believe Chief's gonna be back next meeting. We're gonna have an ordinance on designating some corridors under state statute, so that's kind of when you get all the information everyone to know about speed cameras.
Yeah, we think we'll be live with them around August or September.
And will those eventually pay for themselves?
I'm told that they will more than pay for themselves. It's not about generating revenue. It's about slowing people down. But these guys have said that there's just no way to not generate significant revenue.
One last question. Is there a way to put those at stop signs and also moderate people's behavior when the big red sign is out there?
To have them come to a complete stop. I don't know if we've,
Somewhat.
yeah, I don't know if
I think
we've
that-
had that
Yeah, I
level.
can't remember. What I was gonna say is that the state statute that permits us to do this is very specific to speed cameras and not red light or stoplight cameras. So right now, we don't have the authority under state law to do either of those 2 things. But we can do the speed cameras.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Anybody else? Questions? Questions? All right, you gotta wait a second. Counselor Smith.
Thank you, and thank you all, the staff and the team. This strikes me as a remarkable document. Certainly as a very comprehensive menu, but in many instances, actually recipes, actual cookbook, guidances. And I really appreciate that level of detail. Also appreciate the consultation that the whole team did with the Transportation Commission, and thanks staff for including the Transportation Commission's recommendations in response in tonight's meeting packet. That reflects well, I think, on that group, and hopefully it was helpful to doing our homework. One of the things that I think we were picking up in that discussion with the Transportation Commission, and then my own from reading the stages of the documents, this differential in response seems to be that people are real good about identifying problems or describing their personal experiences. Here's what needs to be addressed. They're have less expertise on how to do that. And that's why turning to our own staff and these consultants is very helpful, because you've got the materials and the experience to do that. And I think that's partly why the second round had fewer responses, because people don't know what the solution is. They just know what the problem is. One little thing that I wish Priyana were here to note, that as I understand, during the outreach sequence, the public meetings, the high school basketball game was the best one of all. So that for city PR purposes in general, or outreach purposes, may be an opportunity to replicate. I have a couple of questions, one little one and a couple other little more substantive ones. At Safe Roads SR 5.7, there's a phrase in there called pedestrian recall. What does that mean?
So that's when the pedestrian signal comes on every cycle. So you don't have to push the push button.
Okay.
And this happens in a lot of places, downtown Denver, where it just automatically comes on. And so that's a again, a way to make sure you're kind of providing that green light for a pedestrian or a white walk sign for a pedestrian every cycle.
Great, thank you. The other thing about the Transportation Commission's recommendations is that most of them have ended up in this latest draft, and I really appreciate the usefulness of what the commission provided and the recognition of that in preparing this updated draft. A couple of them that from this Transportation Commission that might warrant a little more attention, if not in this report, in its implementation ultimately. In the early phases of outreach and consultations with partner organizations, the study identified transit crashes or transit conflicts. Unless I'm just overlooking it, I don't see much about that in the remedies section in this second phase. Is that because that's shopped out to Roaring Fork Transit Authority and Colorado Department of Transportation, or why is that not there?
Well, I guess I would say, yeah, a lot of those were kind of operational type things that RAFTA deals with. But there are some in terms of daylighting parking, as they say, which means removing parking at the end of the block so that the buses can get back out and don't have to shift around another parked car. Those are in there.
Those are in there.
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
overlook it.
those are in there. A lot having to do with the pedestrian crossings and improving, making them more visible, things like that. That's all the things we would focus on around transit
Good,
stations.
thank you. There are some new style crosswalk markings and other pavement markings that are discussed in the narrative and in the chart of remedies and in some colorful photographs. One of the recommendations that the commission had was be sure in implementing this kind of thing that you confer carefully with Public Works on maintenance issues, because some of them include new paint colors and bold installations, and want to be sure that we can keep up with maintaining those before committing to things besides the familiar ones that we already work with. A little thing again that our professional staff have taught us, there's a mention a time or two of the Americans with Disabilities Act as a reference for some of these measures. We have learned that that's primarily indoor facilities, and the outdoor facilities are the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines, ProWAG.
ProWAG.
Small
Correct.
point, it may be just worth keeping that in the document as the more appropriate reference document, the reference law. And I think that's the end of what I've thought to ask, other than, can we get a copy of tonight's slideshow? We just have the current draft plan in our council packet as far as I can tell, and there was some additional information.
Absolutely. Yeah.
in that looked helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Weimer.
So I just want to get some clarity. So Carl, give us the status of red light cameras so that we either stop talking about them or we know what we're talking about.
Okay, no red light cameras in the state of Colorado for municipalities. Yeah.
That's not helpful.
So we don't have.
Why did you qualify it for municipalities? Is that a qualifier of distinction?
Because I don't know if CDOT has different authority than we do.
Okay.
But I do know as it applies to us, we have been authorized to do speed cameras statutorily. We are not authorized to do red light cameras.
Okay. And then the yet part, what does that mean?
I think that Colorado is moving in that direction in general. If you've ever been, spent time like in Chicago, red light cameras are a huge source of revenue for the city, as are speed cameras. So I think Colorado is slowly shifting more that direction of some of these larger, kind of municipalities and states that implement, whether it's California or Illinois, that have implemented more of this kind of technology. Historically, Colorado has been very adverse to it at the legislative level.
Right. Okay. So Lee, you're just have to wait at the Taco Bell intersection. We'll get them at some point, but, okay. So speed, but no red light.
And remember that you only have two.
Two
stop
speed,
signs.
and only 2 city lights.
Yeah,
Two
there's only
city
two
lights.
city stoplights. The rest of them are all CDOT. So we wouldn't have, Highway 82 is not our.
No, I know. No, I know.
Yeah. So-
That's why I asked earlier about, was that
Got
a
it.
different process or not?
Got it.
But
Got it.
I shouldn't have even asked the question.
Okay, excellent. Any other questions? No, see none. Anybody from the public have any questions? Online? No, nobody here. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Lee.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies, for being online and giving us the latest update. Thank you very
Your
much. Very
feedback.
informative.
Thanks, Ginny.
Thanks,
Thanks, Chloe.
Looking forward to
Thank
June
you.
to get this adopted. So,
Definitely.
Before I
Thank you.
leave, I'd just like to make a plug for our on-demand Ride Glenwood
please, Lee.
service that just started today. And yeah, get yourself on the app, get yourself in there and take some rides. It was great seeing the van around town today.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Lee. Good plug. Anybody good, or we need an intermission quick or a recess? This will be fast, okay. Item 10, ordinance 2025-14, municipal court collection of unpaid fines. Carl.
Yeah, that's more than what the change in the code is. So we, collecting unpaid fines in municipal court is getting increasingly difficult. We'll probably have a longer discussion about it when we talk about, how we enforce against, various, crimes in muni court related to, say, the homelessness issues and discon and things like that. We have about $29,000 in unpaid fines in the municipal court right now. Most of those are traffic tickets that don't just get paid. We don't have express authority to turn those over to a collection agency. And so this is just modifying the code to give that express authority to the municipal court to enter into an agreement for collection of those fines. The city manager would be the one that would be signing off on any collection agreement with whatever company that we might engage to do that. So it just gives us the ability to do that.
Okay, thank you. Short and sweet. Any questions? Counselor Schmal.
Why would we do that? Why can't we collect these things ourselves?
It's a variety of reasons. A lot of these are tickets issued to people who are out of state. It's not like it's a guy down the street from us. The other one is that, quite frankly, since we can't put anybody in jail, it's very hard to get compliance sometimes. We can issue another ticket to you for not showing up to court to pay your first ticket, but that's about the end of it. So this just gives us another way to collect those that have gone unpaid. Like I said, most of these.
I guess maybe my more specific question is, what capabilities do collection agencies have that we don't have?
More at scale than anything else, in terms of personnel to be making the phone calls. That if you've ever had to deal with a collection agency, they just are pretty aggressive about phoning constantly, kind of thing. For $29,000, I don't know that it's worth a full-time staff person to do that, but to turn those over and add a 15 or 20% collection fee onto that with those tickets, that probably makes more sense for us to do.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Smith.
Thank you. Are there other techniques available that have already been considered or should be considered besides doing it in-house, as Councilor Schmal suggested, or going to a collection agency? Are there other approaches? Wage garnishments, bank account invasions? I don't know how that world works, but
There are, if you want to spend the money and time, but when we're talking about like a $30 ticket or a $100 ticket, those are significant costs to invest to get that money back. We're looking for a way to kind of lower those out-of-pocket expenses to collect some of that money. I mean, if you were going to go down that path, I would just say write off the $29,000 and then let's move on. Because it's all of that, a wage garnishment. I would need to get, approval from not this court, but the one across the courtyard. I'd need to file that with an employer. They'd need to fill out paperwork. I'd need to review that paperwork. We'd need to get that, it's not time consuming. Sorry, lots of nots in there. It takes time to do all those things. And so this is one that I have really, I will be honest with you, I have real mixed feelings about using collection agencies. But it is an efficient way to try to deal with this particular problem without expending any more taxpayer dollars or resources on it to try to collect it.
Thank you. Two more questions occur to me. I asked this question this morning in a very helpful orientation that you provided to the new members. But for the sake of discussion, I'll ask again, what's the likely rate of return on that collection agency service? What percentage of the $28,000 would the city actually get?
We'd be lucky to get a little more than half. I'd say between 45 and 55% roughly.
Much, okay.
Yeah. Before the fees, yeah. There's just not enough money in this to make it a huge deal, but we feel like we should do something to, pick up whatever nickels we can in it.
It's starting to strike me that maybe the option to just let it go financially makes sense. That I asked the other question, is there another benefit here? Is holding people responsible, having them have a more unpleasant experience in response to their violation of a less tangible but important value? It sounds like financially this doesn't make sense, but is there a behavioral benefit to continuing with enforcement or with a collection?
I mean, certainly that's our hope. Like I said, I think frankly, what a lot of this is people who, forgot to pay their ticket, didn't pay their ticket. It's not, I don't know that it's necessarily entirely willful behavior, but some of it likely is. I mean, it's probably a mix of things. So absolutely, if you know that it's going to go to collections, that might help change behavior a little. I don't know that it's going to change it a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tansley.
Yeah, one thing I'd say, just having a long background in credit and collections and whatnot like that, I think what we're hearing here is very accurate. You're not going to get a lot of money back on it. If it's a way to get it out of our bailiwick and send it somewhere else where somebody else is doing it, those guys are really good at harassing people. If you want that negative experience for them, which I do kind of think we, want, and then, in some cases you're actually going to get a little bit back out of it. But, if it'll help, I would support that.
Yeah, and we don't really want it to get out that, we don't do anything, right? I mean, if that word starts to get around,
Yeah.
then that number will start to climb on us.
And if there is somebody that, is having a negative experience, they're having it with a collection agency versus city staff, which I think is probably a better look for us as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Weimer.
Guys, just curious how this works. Do we sell the list to an agency and then they do with it what they can, or is
Yeah,
it-
we basically give them the list. They do with it what they can. They take a portion of it as compensation.
give it to
We
it-
get the rest.
do we sell it up front, or do we have to wait for them to actually close onesies and twosies before we?
Yeah, we have to wait until they collect it and then we get our part.
Just curious.
Thank you. Councillor Small.
Carrying on the conversation from end to end here, I'm very frustrated at the idea of passing ordinances that we can't enforce. And this to me is one of them. And it sends the signal if we don't try to enforce and impose a penalty on people who have made an infraction on our codes. So while I don't like the idea of collection agencies, I don't like the idea of letting go. And the more we let go, it's the broken window progress the more it will be expected to be let go. So I'll support it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Just real quick, I'm more than frustrated. I'm baffled. I'm like, why can't we collect? What is it? Are we just not big enough to have the people? I mean, if this was a bigger city, how do bigger cities do it? They have people in place.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of scale, right?
Right.
Like,
Is that it, though?
if you're a city and county of Denver and you have 150 people in your city attorney's office, for instance, and you think about the scale of that for every other department, you have a massive collection operation going on, right? And you can do that. When you think about the amount of time it would take to chase each one of these tickets, right? For $28,000 total dollars, it doesn't make a ton of sense for us to try to staff and do that. And so from that standpoint, it's just kind of to Counselor Small's point, it's a way for us to try to collect on these without investing any more staff time in it. Recognizing that we may collect some of it, but it's just, with the staffing we have, it doesn't make sense for them to commit all of their time and resources to $28,000 when there's a whole bunch of other work that needs to get done, whether it's in the courts or over in finance.
No, I don't disagree at all. I'm just, I mean, and every time you guys come in front of us, and which is important, I get it, it's always traffic related. Most of the time it's traffic related. I mean, don't we have other fines that we need to collect? And we collect
one
them?
One thing is that the vast majority of it goes to the nature of the jurisdiction of the court, right? So the vast majority of infractions that we see in municipal court are related to traffic. The vast volume, probably, I don't know, 70, 80%, something like that. Maybe higher. Could be higher. So that's why, parking and traffic, that's the muni court's kind of bread and butter, if you will. We're fortunate we don't have a ton of dog at large, which is the common one in a lot of jurisdictions that we do prosecution in as a firm. Winter towing, things like that. So that's why you're hearing about cars all the time, is that the things that are more serious, theft, assault, domestics, those are all over in county or district court. So that's why you hear us talking about in court here, we're dealing with parking and we're dealing with speeding.
Okay. Makes sense. Counselor Smith.
Thank you for a re-up. That discussion prompted another question for me. Putting the $28,000 currently, the slice of non-compliance into perspective, how much is that of the overall fine package? Are we losing what percent?
No, I can't tell you exactly, but it's not very much. I mean, that number's come up over a period of time.
Yeah, that's, I don't know, it's 4 years. Yeah.
So a larger portion of the court appearees pay up.
Much larger, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, this is just some that are hanging out that we're trying to get it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, excellent. If I see no more questions, we'll ask the public to see if they want to chime in on the ordinance. See none here, see none online, then I'll bring it back to council, entertaining a motion in ordinance 2025-14. I don't either. Mike. Counselor Weimer.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I move to approve ordinance 2025-14 municipal court collection of unpaid fines.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve, and Counselor Small.
I will second that motion.
Excellent. Motion is second. Any more discussion? See none, we'll call for the question.
Yes, Councillor Townsley. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Zelinski. Yes, Mayor Dem. Yes, Councillor Weimer. Yes, Councillor Schmal. No, Councillor Smith. It passes 5-1. Sorry, still getting used to it.
Good. Thank you, Ryan.
Used to be able to rattle those names.
How do I get rid of this? What? Yeah, it only gets green and red if one is off. I don't know what that is. Excellent. Okay, thank you. Moving on to a council comment. Like last time, I'll start from the outside in. Councillor Townsley. Thank you. Councillor Schmall.
Supposed to have been comments about tonight's proceedings or
Sure.
something from the outside?
Whatever you'd like.
You got your,
Yep. Give me that and I'll give you this and you're good to go.
So I'd like to observe that I got on our consent agenda, I thought we were going to consider this Wave Park contract and get to discuss it and I missed out.
There is a process.
I understand and I'm learning the process. I'm sorry. But I want to observe at this point that having talked about all this traffic stuff, that we are now the biggest concern are pedestrian and bicycle vehicle conflicts that we're trying to deal with in the safety plan. And the contract that we just approved is going to put more traffic in more harm's way and half of the contract amount is doing road work to help mitigate that when I believe there are better solutions to keep that additional pedestrian traffic off of the roadway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Schmall. So in the future, I would urge you to just say, I'd like to pull item, whichever one it was, F or E or whatever, from the consent agenda for discussion, and you can pull that anytime.
Okay, just like you did on
Yep,
on the award thing. Just pull it.
correct. Just pull it off the consent for discussion, and then we usually do a motion, and and we run through a vote, and then we get to discuss it. We'll add it to the agenda and.
Thank you.
Yep. Councillor Zelinski.
Not much, but a couple weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago now, Mayor Dem and I met with a really impassioned group over at the old Glenwood Gardens location. They want to talk about the potential of a botanic garden, and I'm wondering if anybody besides myself is interested in having that put on the regular agenda to have them come and present their ideas and see if there is support for that.
I think we got some head nods, so if you want to make a formal motion.
All right,
see if
so
we can
I would
do
like
that.
to move that we add a presentation by I think they have like a group there, the group that is supporting the Botanic Gardens, and I'll let them introduce themselves officially.
To put it on the agenda.
Did I not say that?
I don't know, did you say that?
To put that on the agenda.
Okay, we got a motion to put a presentation on a future agenda by the Garden Club with the Botanical Garden Committee. Okay, I have a motion to do that?
Second it.
And a second, all in favor? Aye. Those opposed? We'll see none. Great.
Thanks, guys.
They kind of mentioned that they wouldn't get in touch with you, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, excellent. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I've spent a fair amount of time in recent years working on city policy, and so encountering city staff consistently impressed with their skills and their professionalism and their personableness. Is that a word? But in the last few weeks, we new kids in the class have been getting a heavier dose of that staff and their professionalism and their skills and their attention to detail. We've had just beginning a series of department by department orientations. And then meanwhile, we've had this just very responsive communications in response to our questions and guiding us through the mechanics of being on this body. So more than ever, I appreciate what kind of staff the city has built and congratulate them on individually and how well they work together.
Thank you. Nice words. Councillor Weimer. There's nothing? Okay, nothing from me either tonight. Everything's been said. We'll move on to city manager.
Thanks, Counselor Smith, for that. Appreciate it. I just had a couple quick things. Lee is right. If you have a chance to ride the Ride Glenwood, do it. Take some pictures of yourself, get it on social media, and we'll all try to, promote that as much as we can. Second thing is, Dana mentioned it today. We last did a strategic plan in 2020. And it was through 2025, which is now. So as the budget cycle starts, I'm thinking about maybe doing a retreat of some kind. I was thinking maybe one day, go to Mortgage Commons or something. The skeleton of that strategic plan is actually pretty good, in my opinion. The goals within it and the things that we're trying to accomplish have turned over in that time. So I don't know that we need major surgery, but at the very least, we need to come up with, okay, what are we going to try to do in the next 5 years? So I bring it up here just if anybody has got ideas of what to do, or somebody that you know of that might be good at facilitating that. I mean, I know a few people, but any thoughts you have, let me know. And we'll try to do that, I think, in the first 3 weeks, sometime in June. Okay, last thing I've got, I told you guys a couple of meetings ago that Yvette's audit from 2023 was awarded the GFOA award for excellence in financial reporting. What that means is that our stakeholders here can have a high degree of confidence that what's in that audit, those numbers are in fact accurate, right? Well, it turns out that her 2025 budget won the GFOA award for distinguished budget. And what that means is if you get stamped with that award from GFOA, it means that the layperson in our community has everything they need to fully understand the financial condition of the city and fully understand what's in the budget. So congratulations, Yvette, and to her team.
Good job.
Not easy either.
No.
It's not.
No.
I've been actually really surprised at how much detail GFOA goes into. They take it very seriously. I mean, they scrub our audit like you wouldn't believe. I mean, it has been very surprising. So everybody can have confidence that if that number's in the audit, it's right. So that's it for me.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve Boyd, and City Attorney Carl Han.
Yeah, I just have to retract everything I just said. I kind of misinterpreted, I guess, the legislation on red light cameras. If they are inside of the designated speed corridors, we can do it. It has to be inside the designated, and I apologize for that, inside the designated speed corridor. I'm sorry.
It's confusing.
So no, it's the.
What's the
legislation
speed
is
corridor?
super unclear on how and where they can be used. I think if I'm and there again, and I'm rereading legislation, I'll get a note out to you guys tomorrow or on Monday. If I'm rereading it correctly, it has to be inside the designated corridors, which we're going to designate. I think the one other question in my mind is whether or not CDOT will allow permitting of those on their lights, which is where the larger issues are for us. Just anecdotally from my experience, because I drive Midland all the time, and I don't feel like those two lights are nearly the issue that Grand is. So, because I do know, and we're kind of previewing what we're going to be talking about the next time, that the companies that do this actually there's a whole permitting process with CDOT to do anything on state highways. So I think that's probably where in my head, the legislation was unclear on whether or not it was permitted, particularly on Grand Avenue. So I apologize.
Okay, thank you, Carl, for that. No correspondence from what I've seen. Councilor Zelinski,
Is this my new job?
that's your new job.
The pro tem's
I
job.
have the power.
Councilor Social Event
All right.
announcement.
So first, I'd like to reach out to our food and beverage community to give us more options to meet at this hour of the evening. But until we have those, I believe we will be reconvening at Doc Holidays for our evening libations.
That sounds great. Thank you very much. And entertaining a motion to adjourn this meeting. Okay, do it again.
I move to adjourn.
I think it's.
Looking for a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Mitchell seconded.
Motion second that. Those opposed, I see none. Meeting is adjourned.